Thomas Jefferson said that when a people allow a government to dictate the foods they put in their mouths and the medicines to take in their bodies, their souls will soon be in the same sorry state as those who live under tyranny. And that's exactly where we're going. Unless we rise and we en masse people go up and have public gatherings of thousands, 2,000, 3,000 people and show that there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to fear but fear itself, in the words of FDR. What are they going to do? Arrest 2,000, 3,000 people in every city? This is what's needed right now. And we have a small window of opportunity because the Surgeon General already came out and said the numbers, and the mainstream media is trying to desensitize it, block it, make sure that nobody knows about it, and they're upping their game. They're trying to tell people, no, not 6 feet of social distancing, 13 feet. No, it's not going to be 1 year before you go back to make it. It's going to be 2022. That's what these bastards are saying. And for what agenda? To further the agenda of the vaccine mandate. It doesn't make any sense. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all lies. These numbers are not there. Even the numbers they're using right now still don't equate to the seasonal flu. Still they're under it. That's why they're overinflating the numbers. That's why they're changing the death certificates. That's why they're telling nurses to get laid off so they can go back and change the cause of death. That's why they're changing the mandate. That's why they've got mannequins and they're filming one hospital and it's all staged. I've never seen an ICU like what they had on ABC. I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, it's Italy, so maybe that's how their ICUs look. Then they show the same thing in New York. And I'm like, wait a second, it's the same freaking footage. It's one lie upon another lie, Gary. And the American people, not just the American people, the world's citizens, this is affecting the entire world. You all need to realize that this is a facade. And the scientists and the doctors that are keeping their mouths shut, if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. You are creating and perpetuating a myth, and you should be speaking out, not be worried about your own personal safety. Speak out the truth because the rest of the world needs it. Because you know what? I don't care what happens to me, Gary. I don't give a crap what happens to you or me. It's irrelevant. What I do care about is my kids. What I do care about is my grandkids. I don't have any yet, but one day I will. About the future progeny, about all of our future progenies, about the future of the human race. That's what I'm concerned about.
I wanted to come back and hit a point you mentioned about the percentages of individuals affected by vaccines. You brought up autism, but recently Bill Gates, he went on CNBC. We covered it here, and he said, and he said with a smile, it was very, very sinister. In fact, he said 700,000 people could be affected by his vaccine, and that governments need to set up some kind of indemnification so that they're not held accountable for 700,000 people affected by the vaccine. He's admitting that. But when you have 700,000 people affected by a vaccine, but you also have the people who will be, quote unquote, protected from COVID-19, they say millions of people are going to be dead because of it, and those numbers are revised, but they're accepting 700,000 people who will be affected, some killed, maimed. How do these people come up with this rationale, and then they're going to make governments not held accountable for this when they mandate it? What's going on here?
700,000 deaths that he's talking about from this vaccine, I'm going to tell you, all the projected deaths from COVID-19, whatever that number is, you can put 9 zeros at the end of it. You can say the 7 billion people, that's what their goal is. It's not going to be from COVID-19. It's not going to be from H1N1. It's not going to be from Zika. It's not going to be from any of these other issues. It's going to be from the damn vaccines. It is, though those that know already understand this. You just need to listen to Dr. Judy Mikovits and what she went through and how she was, her entire career, her life, they deemed her a fugitive from justice. They put her in jail. I'm telling you right now, these people, Gates, Fauci, and their entourage, their minions, if you were to take these people and put them in jail, you would see the world would be such an incredible, beautiful, abundant place. They have been pitting Jews against Muslims and Christians against Jews and black against white and Democrats against Republicans, because they're trying to divide everyone so that they can be distracted. There's division. You divide and then you conquer. We need to understand that regardless of what different belief systems are, we're all part and parcel of the same species. We're humans. And they have been, their agenda, they don't care about what color you are or what your belief system is. They just want to, I'm just coming out and I'm saying it, Gary. I'm sorry if everybody thinks I'm a loon here. I don't really care. There's a depopulation agenda. Bill Gates has been quoted to say depopulation through vaccination. Now, I don't understand how a person can come out and make these kind of statements and say 700,000 people are going to be maimed. But I can tell you the 700,000 people that are going to be maimed from the vaccine, you need to add another 3 zeros to the end of it, because that's how many people are going to be blamed. But they're going to blame it on the COVID-19 and use that as a justification to vaccinate more people. That's exactly what's happening. The people that say about anti-vaxxers and pro-vaxxers, and I've been labeled as an anti-vaxxer, I'm here to tell you I'm not anti-vaccine. I've never been anti-vaccine. What I am is anti-stupidity, because every aspect of the vaccination schedule that's being used in the human population defies every fundamental aspect of human physiology. Every single aspect. The immune system isn't even able to mount a response till at least 6 months to a year, depending on the immunologist that you read, the literature that you read. It can be from 2 years to 14 years before the immune system is matured enough. We know that the immune system cannot even mount a response till the first 6 months of life. Yet we're giving babies vaccinations on the first day of the planet. Why? Because for what reason? Well, because we want to protect them. Protect them from what? What are you protecting them from? What are you protecting a child whose immune system isn't even capable of seroconverting by adding substances that have a vaccine that has an immunosuppressive component in there, such as nickel, aluminum, mercury, formaldehyde, and then you give adjuvants such as DNA fragments and adducts and mutated human cell lines and others, all this crap that you put into the body. Now you're giving somebody something to stimulate the immune system, yet you're suppressing their immune system with all the immune suppressants that are in it, and you're giving it at a time when the immune system can't even respond. So tell me, where's the logic of this? There's no logic, and doctors are like robots, and they keep on following this. Anybody who says that vaccines are necessary, they either are completely 100% ignorant, or they have a suspect agenda. They're financially motivated by saying it, because it's a blatant lie. There is no justification to put vaccines into the body at the first day on the planet, because the body can't even respond to it. Gary, I'll make an analogy for you. We know how to walk. God gave us legs so we can walk, right? But man came along and said, we need to improve our modes of transportation. So now when we want to go from here to South Africa, we fly. Similarly, the body has an immune system, and God designed the immune system to work a certain way. So man comes along and says, hey, we want to make the immune system enhance it so that we're more protected. Okay, so far, I'm all with you. And the concept of vaccine is sound. I got it. You introduce a foreign substance, that's exactly how the body works. Now, my question is, if I told you that every time you fly from here to any other place on the planet, you get on a plane, 1 out of 32 of you is either going to die or have some type of neurological permanent disability, would you fly?
No.
And that's exactly the point. Good concept with the vaccine, terrible product. Terrible product. And here's the thing that I didn't know until my friend Del Bigtree showed this in one of his presentations. Do you know that when you file a lawsuit against a vaccine manufacturer, do you know who is named as the defendant in that lawsuit?
No, I mean, I know about the vaccine injury courts, the fund, but I don't know who's named in the lawsuit.
Who's named in the lawsuit is the Secretary of the Health and Human Services. Why, you may ask? Because in the 1980s, and I didn't know this, we go back to history, in the 1980s, the vaccine manufacturers came out and told Congress they needed a bailout. They said, there's so many people suing us because of the side effects, we need a bailout. President Reagan at that time said, this is not a good idea, but Congress approved it and bailed out the vaccine industry and said, we're going to not take over the mandate of policing and studying and making sure that everything's done, the safety studies. And of course, just like typical fashion of the government, it was dropped. The ball was dropped. So now, anytime somebody sues a vaccine manufacturer because they were bailed out from Congress going all the way back to the 1980s, the defendant is no longer the vaccine industry. It is the government that has bailed them out. So the Health and Human Secretary is named in that lawsuit as a defendant. And guess who you're fighting? Guess who the lawyers are on the opposite side? The Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is supposed to be to make sure that justice is being done, is fighting and representing the vaccine manufacturers against the injury to the common person. That's how contorted and distorted and screwed up our system is. It is time to clean it up. It's time to take the Gates and the Faucis and having them held accountable for what they've done.
Wow. That's certainly something to consider here. And that is really, I believe, where things are going. We're seeing people like Dr. Shiva, yourself, myself, we're calling for accountability in these leaders. And taking it back one more step, talking about the surveillance aspect, We see Google, we see Apple, and these different apps now. They are working to track COVID patients. What kind of a precedent are we setting here? You mentioned RFID earlier, and we do know that there is a specialized ink that they can put when they give you a vaccine that they can only be seen underneath a light. So what kind of a precedent are we setting here regarding invasion of privacy, as well as turning our sick into pariahs?
Gary, I think that you're being very, very generous and very gentle, because if you want to see what kind of precedent this is, I think you already know. You're smiling, so you already know this is a World War II precedent. This is no different than what happened to the Jews, how they were ostracized, how other people of color, or people of different belief systems were segregated and sent to the concentration camps. I mean, what's the difference between an ink that you can't see and an ink that you could see when they tattooed the Jews during World War II? What's the difference? It's the same thing. Okay, there's already information that goes back and shows Bill Gates's belief system, his belief system, the eugenics, and their history that goes all the way back to, you know, whether it's direct, indirect relationships with all the things that have happened from Nazi Germany. There's a 5-6 minute video that we're going to be releasing tomorrow that was actually put out by, I believe it was InfoWars. It's a beautifully done 5-minute history of where it all started and where we are right now, and how it connects it all. I mean, the amount of censorship that's going on right now, that in itself should be scary to people, that there's things that are being censored. You know, when people say, well, Dr. Fauci, where's your proof? Why isn't the media covering this? You know, if it's true, then everybody would be covering it. That's the whole point. Censorship has been created in order to prevent the dissemination of truth. And these media organizations are all inclusion. You know, I just had a huge hack job that Huffington posted. Even people that are supposedly friendly to us in certain types of media, I was contacted by 2 different sources that wanted to interview me, but then both of them didn't want me to go into a certain area. And I told them, what? And they're like, well, we just don't want to cover that type of stuff. And I said, you know what? I'm being censored by the best. I'm being censored by the biggest, by YouTube and Facebook. I don't need you to tell me, you know, what you're trying to censor me on. If I want to be censored, I'll just stick with YouTube and Facebook. So, Gary, I appreciate you having the ability to and the desire to get the truth out. And I think that your name of your network, Next News Network, it's very appropriate, because I believe that that's where people are going to be tuning in for the source of information, like Robert Scott Bell, you. There are many other people that are providing true information without censorship, and they're being censored. So I appreciate the media that is the true media that has journalistic integrity and reporting all sides. That's what I put my life on the line for. That's what millions of Americans have died during the First World War, the Second World War, the Vietnam, Korea, was for freedom. Freedom of speech. That's our first freedom. The freedom to bear arms, our second freedom. And that's what they've been trying to do. There's all this stuff about being disarmed. If they disarm us, guess what happens? Then they can make anything happen. I have friends from all parts of the world over the last 5-6 years that have been telling me over and over again. These are people that are not U.S. citizens telling me, I hope you Americans understand. I hope you never give up your guns, because if you do, then everything's lost. Because when America goes down, so does the rest of the world. Because we have the largest public group that is armed. We have so many retired military and law enforcement people out there. And I have a message for every law enforcement and every military, active duty or retired. I want you to remember these words. Every opportunity I'm getting to say this, I'm reminding them that you took an oath to defend the U.S. Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You remember that word, domestic. And remember that if you're law enforcement, active duty right now, military right now, when you're called upon to commit some type of action against the citizenry, remember, you take off your uniform, you're the same way. Your kids are going to be the same susceptible individuals as getting the RF chips and all this other stuff. They're going to be susceptible to the same poison. So it is illegal to follow an illegal order. So remember that. Remember that when you're called to do something against citizens, remember that your job, the oath that you took, was to protect those that can't protect themselves. Protect those that are vulnerable, not to take advantage of them. So remember that oath. Law enforcement and military, active or retired, it doesn't make any difference. Remember your oath.
Remember your oath. Absolutely. Those are words to remember here. And for everyone watching right now, this a lot of information here. A lot of information we put on the table. And it's up to you now to take this information, share it with your friends. Take the link to this video, put it in an email, share it. Put it in a text message, share it. Put it on Twitter. Put it on Facebook. Share the links and make this information widely disseminated, because you're not